Hey everybody, listening to the Hard Bastards show and or channel, and Don Lemon and W.Kamau Bell were going off about Ben Carson. The whole thing of slaves, immigrants, blah blah blah. Um, and so this is really something that has hit me about how lately how BLM and didn't do nothing culture, Nagger X's, Hoteps, other phonies, people who don't like to read, critically in any way. People who they're desperately holding on to sort of some dream history, because one of the things about um, the segregation period, what really stands out in my view is how people who didn't have shit ended up having whole sections of town that really were generally functional. I mean, really, like this idea that, like, the blacks just lived in corrugation or shanties or something, that was just disgusting. And, well, most Americans lived in shitty ass conditions. It's really this bizarre idea that white people just had these lavish homes or something, that in the South, that whites and blacks, that there was, oh, the whites are doing fine, when literally it, you almost anytime you ever hear a black person going off about white people, they're obviously referring to people who are, that everyone from their area, they would know what they're referring to. These people are poor. They are the white people who are poor. It's not like they were rich once and became poor. No, there's this class sort of poor ass white people. Well, that was normal. And those white people, most of their ancestors, especially in the South, they came here in the bottom of a ship as slaves. It might have been put in a different verbiage of the day, but they really were just grabbed right off of the land that they lived in, either Ireland or Scotland, and sent to Australia or here or New Zealand or some other hellhole to clear all the swamps, drain all the malarial swamps, build the passes and roads and things like that. And this idea that it's like black people were doing anything other than really work on farms is just preposterous. It's just this bizarre, preposterous thing. And so then it becomes this thing of why must you make up things? Why are you just liars who make things up? What's so hard about this? What do you think farming is easy? Do you think living that's like the thing that gets me is these obviously are people who have been in the city for so many generations or just enough time. They can't conceive of how difficult it is to live in the country. I had no idea when living out in an area more rural than where I'm at now. When I first moved to Oregon, like, I had no idea what hot was until they cut all the fucking crops down. And then the sun just, you're in a fucking desert. You're like this one farmhouse surrounded by nothing. And it is blazing hot. I've never, oh God, it was death. It was like death. You just don't move for hours at a shot. I just couldn't conceive of this. But we had to water a bunch of stuff in the yard because you had to still do things in these extremes of heat and these extremes of cold, this intense ass rain. And you still had to do like all this stuff to maintain the, and you're always looking over, is the house being damaged by these extremes of weather? Because that's where you have to grow food. And you can't grow it in some necessarily temperate area because that's probably where the city is, And these people who don't understand the import of agriculture, that's what it is. They don't understand the import of agriculture. They no longer really listen to gospel. They don't listen to blues and jazz and soul. These people hate black history. These Nagger X's and Hoteps really hate black Americans and black history. They hate They don't care about Venezuela, all the black people in Venezuela. They absolutely don't give a shit about black people in Cuba. That is meaningless to them. Mongo Santa Maria means nothing to them. Don Drummond, the Scottolites, means nothing to these people. Bob Marley, yeah, smoke weed every day. That's all it means. And I met so many people like this because I played soul music, and these black people would come in, they didn't know what the fuck they were hearing. They obviously didn't know what to do. White people were loving the music. They're dancing their asses off, and you could see these black people had no idea what to do. And it was, other than sort of look kind of disapproving at everyone or a little too cool for school. And then every once in a while, people would drink enough that they would dance. But I still remember guys walking up like, oh, yeah, could I get the microphone? And it's like, no, it's soul night. And well, we don't have a mic anyway, but it's soul night. We're just playing soul music. Said, oh, I can't freestyle? And I was like, oh, no. We just couldn't even fathom what the fuck are you talking about? Why do you want to ruin our night? And so I was just like, is this for real? Does that happen at other soul nights? Like black people show up and they start rapping over the best music ever made and ruin it? And so I started really now seeing these people, these BLMers and all this stuff, making shit up about the police, and that the police are just shooting people like crazy, and especially blacks, and for no reason at all. And it's like, if you've done any research, it's like, you just know these guys are such fucking bullshitters. And the thing that really gets me is this whole thing of they're constantly on about the slavery this and slavery that. And it's like, how the fuck do you think people got here? You had to get on a boat across the sea. How do you think people got here? And then when they got here, what do you think they just started walking around into the wilderness? No, every colonial situation, either these are conscripts, these are people who've been shanghaied, these are people who are slaves. That's all. Colonies are rarely like a group of people who are all like great leaders, and the blood of our ancestors runs strong in our line, and we're all kings, and we are here to look around because we don't know where we are. No, you send people who you can lose in the bottom of the sea. That's just how it works. It's just that's it. It's like the water being wet. You don't have to like it. That capillary action, right? It's digging into the roof of your house right now and trying to spring a leak into the room you're in. It's just the nature of it. And to come out of that, to be people who participated in high-tech warfare to free Europe and for the glory of a republic where everyone born is not just allowed to read, not just that they could own books and no one can molest them about it. No, the entire population desperately wanted people to be literate. Black people were actually of a higher literacy rate during segregation than now. From everything I have found, everything I have seen, black people had a higher rate of literacy during the latest part of segregation than now. These people, this is the thing. They want to collectivize all people of African descent. No matter how they got to where they are, no matter how they migrated there. Like Paul Robeson. They see black, yeah, see, and he sang over in the Soviet Union, because he was all into, he was down with the cause, he was down with it, he was for, down with the Bolshevism and stuff like that. And, oh yeah, well, he was also from the Skull and Bone Society and was technically an African. And if we were to use the real terminology, the best terminology to determine his actual background, he was an African. He wouldn't be like a black American. He would be an African, because actually he was either half or full-blooded, like Ibo. And I think at the time they called themselves like like Igbo or something like that. It was pronounced a little differently, but now that it's usually written standard as Ibo. A unique group that make up almost all black geniuses in the first world. Almost everybody who's accomplished, who's like a real genius, that they get awards for it. This black person scored this unbelievable. They're usually descended from a very finite group of Africans. And I mean, within one generation, one of their parents came here from Africa because they were studying to be in university and stayed here. They didn't go back. They stayed here because usually their group is being persecuted back where they're from. Because everybody hates smart kids. Always remember that. Black people punish smart people. Black Americans punish smart people. If you don't go along with the group dumbness, they will punish you. I don't have to apologize for that anymore. I'm in my 40s. Fuck you. I remember this quite specifically. You had to talk like a fucking dumbass, or else the dumbasses would beat the crap out of you and steal your shit. You never knew how fucking nuts some of these guys were. I've seen these kids stick people up. And not poor kids. Totally, they owned a home, or they're renting a totally normal home. This was a normal person, economically speaking. But he wanted to stick people up because he thought it was the shit. Still remember, goddamn, him just running off, sticking some kids up, right, broad fucking daylight, and just mopping people. We called it a blackout back in the day. When you just saw hella blacks just come running off a bus, running off a train. You didn't know who this giant mob of blacks were. They're from Fillmore, from Hunters Point, from the swampy desert. These fucking crazy nuts. Oh my God, if they're from Oakland or Richmond, for some reason they came in on BART, it was a fight. It was always a fight. They were going to beat down anybody because they would just jump right back on BART, go the fuck home. Because they were loped out and uncivilized and hostile as fuck. And I don't have to apologize anymore for it. It's like all this, no, you was a busto, we didn't trust you, all that, it's just, no. Who the fuck gives a shit about any of that gangster shit anymore? Look at these losers who are still sagging their pants. Grown-ass men, looking like they're ready for balling, but they're all fat and lumpy now. Looking like illiterates. And people like that, don't trust them. Notice they're not helping Venezuela. Venezuela is packed full of black people. They're not helping them. You never heard them say shit about Peru. Peru is full of black people. They don't want. None of these people know Quintana Roo even exists. None of these people give a damn about the state of San Croix. None of these people. Imagine if black Americans gave a shit about Haiti, gave a fucking shit about Haiti. How that could all be improved. There's all these black churches. What the fuck are they doing for Haiti? They're not doing shit. Cuba, these people, they're down with the cause. Down with the fucking cause. There were black people who were land owners. A lot of these people got executed. A lot of these people, no, they were black people. Jazz was banned. That's why the Buena Vista Social Club was such a big fucking deal. I still remember how that was the unsaid thing. And then he's like, I haven't touched a piano in blah, blah, blah decades. And I'm like, wait, how is that possible? You guys there's a piano there. How are there no pianos in Cuba? No, they didn't. It was one line. Our music was labeled imperialist. That was the influence of black Americans. Cubans had instruments. Cubans had tunes. Cubans had like stuff that they could sing, but there was the Spanish songs. There was this and that from other groups, such as like a bit of French, a bit of Portuguese, but it was mostly songs from Spain, church songs. And then the random sort of what was left of some African songs. But really, there was no like Cuban sound. The Cubans heard jazz and that changed all Latin music. We don't think of a thing called Latin music without thinking of what the Cubans inherited partially from American blacks and from the Venezuelans. That combination is what made the music what it is today, because Cuba and Venezuela prior to the communist time had a lot of interaction, as well as Jamaica, because when you listen to the Scotalites, you can tell they have played certain songs innumerable times because they changed it to a different time. And if you know anything about Jamaican music, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don Drummond was a fucking genius. Laurel Aitken, his name is Lorenzo Acco. He's from Cuba originally. A lot of people just can't, black people don't know shit about all these. No, there's a lot of black people do, but a lot of black people don't know shit. They don't want to know shit. Their single mama, their greasy ass granny didn't teach them shit. And in some ways, it's fine. They should accept that they are an Oklahoman and be proud of being from Oklahoma and being from rural Oklahoma. And then they move to Oklahoma City or Kansas City, or I forget which one of that works. They move to the big city and they don't really remember much about the old farm and the old ways and the old, but you could always find out about it. People wrote it down. People took photos of places where black people lived. I collect a lot of soul records from labels that no longer exist. There's whole labels that are nothing more than printing album by album by album, the best label made. So they made many, 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 many songs. These are the best of them. A label that has been forgotten for the most part, even in the city it once existed in. And then they'll have photos. They'll have the stories of these people. Do you know most of the time these are white people who've collected all this information? Most of the soul records, if you look for really truly rare Jamaican records, really true soul, rare soul music, you're mostly dealing with white people. You're rarely, if ever, dealing with black people. This is how that is. A lot of these fuckers are liars. And people have to understand this. They're trying, this is a part of Obama's whole kind of blackness thing and all the people he was into. Notice who he wanted around him from famous black people, not famous black intellectuals, not famous, leading black theologians who are orthodox in some way. You don't see a whole bunch of black Catholic priests. You don't see Ethiopian Orthodox ministers or anything. No. No, he has all these fucking mud dick rappers around because that's what it is now to be black. Stupid and have forgotten the actual humble origins of black American culture. Because you see, everybody wants to be big city and super cool and super hip. They don't want to understand, no, real people actually can grow food out of the ground. A real culture feeds its own people. Get mad about it and then improve. Because that would be like black people during Jim Crow. They improved. That hurts. That's what hurts. You look back and you know your grandparents and your great-grandparents were so much better than your parents. They're better than you. It hurts. And it should, because it's the truth. Improve. Or stop complaining. You liars. You spit on all of them. All of everybody in your lineage talking all that goddamn bullshit.